Brent, we're getting ready for the trophy presentation. Of course, the winner of the National Football Conference receives the George S. Hallis Trophy. And, of course, we have the owners of the Bears, Mr. and Mrs. McCaskey, here.
Are we on?
We're on. We're on to make the presentation.
Forgive me, I'm punchy. As I understand it, this is the George Hallis Trophy. Virginia's here to present it to the owners. Virginia?
No, to the president. How heavy is that monkey?
You have it?
First of all, I want to thank all the coaches, the Chicago Bear coaches, and the Chicago Bear players. I'd hate to think that I had to do this over in the other side of the locker room area. I'd also like to thank the Chicago Bear fans here in Soldier Field and in Chicago and everywhere for all the love and support that they've shown to us during this year and especially today. This trophy was established by the National League owners in March of 1984. And last year, the 49ers won it, but there wasn't a ceremony like this. The trophy wasn't ready for presentation. So this year, we have it right here in Chicago.
We wanted to take some time today to honor the matriarch of the Chicago Bears, who Paul Tagliabue called the First Lady of the NFL, who truly was a linkage to the beginnings of the NFL, Virginia McCaskey, who passed away earlier this week. Sometimes you don't know the significance of things in the moment. And with that final win against the Green Bay Packers, Virginia McCaskey was able to see her boys take down the Cheeseheads one last time. So, as the Bears enter into the next phase of their story, what did we learn about the Bears this week?
You know, I think one thing that we learned is how long Virginia McCaskey has really been around for, right? I mean, you look at 102 years and you're like, wow, yeah, that's pretty crazy. But then she, and I think you mentioned this earlier, she is a direct link to the beginning of everything.
That blew my mind when I was reading the story about her. Yeah, the beginning of the NFL, she was around for that, which is unreal. That's just crazy because the beginning of the NFL just seems like something in the distance.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like when you have all these talking heads, right, on ESPN or whatever, talking about in the modern era, or that's the greatest quarterback I've ever seen play. It's like she has seen every quarterback play. She's seen it all. That's kind of crazy.
The article said something about Red Grange, and I was like, geez, dude, that's that's like in my mind, the oldest player. Yeah. Shout out Red Grange, dude. Yeah, that's wild, dude. It's unreal. Yeah, that's crazy stuff.
Yeah, and it was kind of cool. A lot of teams put out statements, and they did that moment of silence at the Super Bowl. So, I mean, you could tell, she was obviously the matriarch, and everybody says she was a very graceful lady and all that. And I think one thing that's interesting is that, she was the controlling member of the Bears, but she never I don't think any of the vitriol and just anger at the team's performance was none of it really ever seemed directed at her. Everybody's like, nah, Virginia, she's untouchable. She's an old lady. George, you fucking suck.
Yeah.
It's so I think she just the way she handled herself. And I think fans kind of appreciated that. And, everybody was obviously upset and saddened by her passing, but I don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, it's kind of thrown a little bit of a monkey wrench into the Bears ownership group moving forward. She has, so let me see if I get this right. So she's got nine living children, 21 grandchildren, 40 great-grandchildren, and 4 great-great-grandchildren. And and all of her directly owned shares, which is about 20%, gets divided amongst all those people. And so the Bears themselves, not the Bears themselves, the McCaskeys and the Hallises, I think I read, own about 80% of the Bears, with Virginia owning the majority of 20% of that 80%. I'm getting it right. And now that all gets dispersed to these heirs, and a lot of them wanted to sell before, but their shares weren't a lot. Actually, 2 of them did sell their shares to Pat Ryan, who's like the Aon founder, so he owns that other 20%. And so if these other people that get shares also want to sell, Pat Ryan could be the guy that gobbles them up if he so wants to, or I don't know what's going to happen. George has always wanted to keep the Bears because that's like, we talked about it, George doesn't have anything else besides oatmeal conventions and the Bears. And so but he could get out-muscled here by the rest of the McCaskey family, and they could decide to move off. I don't see anything happening right now. I don't think anything's going to happen here. I mean, I think for next year, they'll probably just wear like a little Virginia patch and go business as usual. Yeah. But it's interesting to see what's going to happen with the rest of these shares moving forward.
It definitely seems like that's like something like her dad wanted to keep it in the family. She wanted to keep it in the family. It's like the whispers of the family from the beginning of like what they want. But then, this is now a time where the person who really wanted to keep it that way is not here anymore. And maybe the opposite side is a little stronger.
But it's a different family too, right? Because it was supposed to go to George Halas Jr. and it would have stayed with the Hallases. And then he passed away very suddenly after he got the team. And that's why it went to Virginia. And that's why it's a McCaskey owned franchise now instead of a Halas owned franchise. And I think you had mentioned that there was even some nasty lawsuit stuff happening with George Halas Jr.'s kids in Virginia about
way back in the early days. Yeah, they've been fighting for controls. Some of that stuff, like, that's like the kind of the sad part of like when people pass away in families, like not even on a football, just in like when beefs come out, when you're supposed to be honoring this person, and it's like you're supposed to unite, and like ugly shit comes down and you start fighting for property or money or whatever. It can become really like sad in this thing of this, like there's this kind of a interesting, like when the matriarch falls, like I feel like, or when someone that high up in a family falls, there's like this wide chasm. There would be this like that patriarch sort of stands as this like unifying figure. Even if people are fighting, it can be like we sort of have to respect this person at the top, and when that space leaves, it can create this wild chasm.
She's like Robert Baratheon, right? She's kind of
all fucking hell breaks loose.
She passed away, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, Lannisters and all these people are coming in. But like, I don't know how they don't have a plan. She's 102. Like, like, oh my God, what do we do now? Like,
so that adds to like what we've been maybe
had a plan for 10 years. 20 years should have been having this plan. Like, so I don't know.
That does kind of go to what we've been kind of talking about on this podcast a lot, which is like just they, at least now they're starting to seem like they have a plan to some degree.
That's true, yeah.
But up until a few weeks ago, it didn't seem like we really had a plan as an organization, and so
that's a good point.
That's not good.
No, but I don't know. I mean, we'll see. George, I don't know if he runs things differently now that Virginia's gone. Maybe there was things that his mom wanted, or the ways she wanted to do things that George didn't agree with, but he's the face right now. And so that's what he did. Like, like no cussing, or like, or the no firing a coach midseason, though they broke that this year because Eberflus was that bad. But I don't know, things like that. Maybe the Honey Bears come back. Who knows?
Cheerleaders.
Yeah.
That was the last time they won a Super Bowl. Is that correct?
Yeah. Halas was all about the Honey Bears and Virginia was not. So maybe they'll bring back the Honey Bears and you can have cheerleaders wearing like humongous ass parkas, just kind of freezing their asses off in December home games.
If it gets us a Super Bowl,
Yeah, sure.
Might be worth the cost of a couple parkas.
But Virginia wasn't the only Bear to pass away. We should give an ode to Dick Jauron as well. Bears coach, 74. Not he had a good maybe the difference between McCaskey and her is like McCaskey and Jauron is like your age. They
had a me age gap in between.
There's a you age gap there. But he was he won Coach of the Year. He was like the soft-spoken guy, and he's part of that 2001 team that was so much fun to watch. I think they went 13-3, and they had nobody expected them to be good. Then they got absolutely depanced by the Eagles and Donovan McNabb in the playoff game. But that was a fun team to watch. They had the back-to-back overtime wins against the Niners and Browns. I don't know if you remember that at all, but those are Mike Brown walk-off touchdowns.
Yes, I do.
YouTube those sometimes, especially the Browns comeback. Oh man, they were
Mike
down
Brown's-
by 2 touchdowns with less than a minute, like 40 seconds left.
Yeah.
And then they scored a touchdown, got the onside kick, scored a Hail Mary touchdown, and then the Browns got the ball in overtime, and a deflected pass ended up in Mike Brown's hands, and he walked it up to the end zone. That was crazy. I remember being in college watching it in my dorm room. That was pretty fun.
Yeah. Shout out Dick Jauron. I was telling you before we started, I have a faint memory of Dick Jauron being principal for a day at Philip Rogers Elementary School, but I'm a little uncertain if that was real or not, or if it was his brother or one of the other Jaurons that nobody knows about that just kind of worked their way into the public school system for a day. But
well, did he preach defense and toughness during that day?
That has really been
probably him. Yep.
Instrumental in the way that I play.
That's why you keep tackling people, right?
It's really gone a little south. I really took his message to heart.
Yeah, no, it was I'm interested. I mean, obviously it's very sad that Virginia passed, but it'd be interested to see how this team moves forward. Like, do we get a different George? Do we get different ownership group? What does that look like? So I don't know. I think people will make a play for it because it's a huge brand, and it's a huge market. And
yeah,
they know that the McCaskies aren't like super wealthy either. Making them a huge offer could sweeten the deal for them. So I don't know. We'll see.
It's an interesting time, man. Like, it seems like a really transitionary time, and it's like been amplified in many ways with just some of the quarterback decision, the coaching decision, and now highest ranks, things have been shaken up. Like, yeah, it seems like I don't know. I guess transitionary times can be good or bad, but it's kind of
I mean, look at the Commanders, and I'm not comparing Virginia to Daniel Snyder at all because Daniel Snyder was just a horrible owner / human. But they reset the clock on everything from the ownership to the head coach to the quarterback to the GM. And like while the Bears didn't do that much resetting, they did do quite a bit, right? I mean, I'll still consider the quarterback new and reset, and then a new coaching staff. They get a new ownership group. Kevin Warren is a new team president that seems to be putting his mark on the way they do things. And who knows, maybe that's how you do change the culture of something that's been so dysfunctional for so long.
Yeah. I mean, the hope is that, some of the family battle stuff doesn't tend I guess destabilize the direction they're moving in, because that could start to get a little crazy. But, I don't know, I guess it's time will tell.
Yeah. Well, now that the season is over, we can kind of start coming up with all these crazy draft scenarios and free agency and things like that. A lot of teams have started to make some of their stars, like they're leaking reports, right? We've heard about Myles Garrett. We talked about him last week. This week we've had Deebo Samuel, Cooper Kupp, Micah Parsons, all have been floated out there. Before anybody asks, no, I don't think the Bears should trade or give up draft capital for any of those players, obviously depending on the price, right? I mean, but depending on what the price I think would be for them, I think they're better off signing free agents or drafting players. Parsons would be the interesting one because he fills a need. I don't think you need Deebo because you have a younger version of what could be a Deebo with DJ Moore.
Yeah.
And Kupp is not going to give you anything that I don't think you have at the moment. So Micah would be the interesting one, but he's going to cost a lot, both in terms of draft capital and money. Something similar to that we talked about with Myles Garrett. I know his Penn State teammate Jaquan Brisker is petitioning for him to come to the Bears so that he can cheer from him on the sidelines, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Do you see a difference in what Myles Garrett brings to the Bears versus maybe what Micah Parsons could bring, as if you were to I guess you see.
Yeah, that's a good question. Myles Garrett, I think, is a better player, but he's also older. So, you have that. And Micah Parsons, you'll have him for a long time and he'll be a cornerstone, but he's going to cost you more, I think. And he also does seem to disappear a little bit in big games. I've had that criticism of him before. Garrett seems to play. I mean, I know the Browns haven't had big games, but Garrett seems to be like a guy that shows up against division rivals and things like that. So I think I'd rather have Garrett between the two of them. just because I think the cost compensation plus, I don't know, just a better player. But obviously they're both great players, but I don't see the Bears getting either one of them.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
a more realistic trade is probably Trey Hendrickson, who is a pass rusher for the Bengals, who I think need to shed some cap with Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, and I think they want to try to keep T. Higgins if they can, though that's looking unrealistic. But he would cost less. You could get him for a pair of third-round picks or something like that. And if Ian Cunningham takes that Jaguars job, now you have a pair of third-round picks. Now, granted, they're not in the same draft class, but you could pair one of those with one that you already have, and do something like that. And that could be enough to get it. Now, he's also, I think, 30 or something like that. So maybe he's a little older than you want to get. But those guys, pass rushers, they can go to like 33 or 34, I think.
So
I
it's
think
like
Chris Jones is like even on over, 30-something. So
yeah. So it's like a lot for Micah Parsons, who's 25, and maybe you keep him for a long time, but the cost of
Yep.
giving up a
cost
lot.
is going to be enormous. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's free agents, right? Like Josh Sweat had a monster game last night, destroying Mahomes. He's a free agent. You don't have to give up any draft capital to sign him. So you can just go get him.
Yeah.
So why not do that?
Right. I see. I'm taking a micro econ class right now, and we're learning about marginal cost and marginal revenue, and like it's just like on the basically it's like additional cost to add these people. And so just as we talk about like, do you spend do you spend a lot on someone who might be really good, but the cost of that and the benefit you can get where you can spend a lot less potentially for someone who can give you like maybe not as great of a boost, but good enough of a boost when you add in all the other shit and all your other players.
Well, and that's part of the Jalen Carter trade, right? People are like, oh, Jalen Carter, Bears should have taken him. They passed on him. Yeah, but they got Darnell Wright, who's a starter and a very good right tackle, and they got Javon Dexter. So those two players combined, are they better than just having Jalen Carter? I mean, Dexter is putting up, I know I don't want to be stat guy here, but he's putting up very similar stats to Jalen Carter, and he's playing with less talent around him. Jalen Carter's playing in a stacked Philadelphia defensive line, stacked defense, and he's getting his and he's playing well. But you swap out Dexter and Jalen Carter, I think you're seeing similar production. I don't know. Dexter's been really good. So it's all about that opportunity cost, like you said. It's like, Moneyball, right? Maybe we give up this guy, but now we get 2 or 3 other pieces that could equal the value of that guy. It's kind of what they did with Roquan too. Now they missed with Trim and Edmonds, I think, but TJ Edwards has been awesome.
Yeah. It's I guess the hope is continue to trend in this direction, and I guess we'll just with each decision, and I guess we'll just kind of be able to I guess it's just the off season in some ways is kind of like the regular season. It's like you're just waiting for them to make a move to react, and it's like there's this potential. Hopefully, like there's not as much of a roller coaster as a season, and a little bit more of a consistency would be nice. Which so far,
So I think the next milestone here is March 10th. I think it's March 10th is when NFL free agency opens. So we'll have 4 weeks to like speculate what's going to happen. Things like that. Now they'll cut people before then, and I think Gerald Everett's getting cut. Ryan Bates is probably getting cut. Maybe Dominic Robinson, maybe some other people, or maybe DeAndre Swift gets cut. Well, he might won't get cut, but maybe he gets traded. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, so we might be able to do stuff like that. I don't know if they can trade before the free agency period or not. I don't know 100%, but there's still things that could happen. So.
Yeah. Okay. So as we close up today's ep, any final thoughts? I know we're looking at March 10th really as kind of the next milestone, but anything to kind of look out for?
What final thought that I had was like, I think we talked about this, but the Super Bowl is just like, I don't know, for as much as we love football, the Super Bowl is just, I don't know, every year it's like, okay, well, it's the last game. I don't really care.
Yeah, I think
and it's supposed to be the 2 best teams, and I'm not as amped for it as I am for like the other playoff games and the conference championship games. I'm just like, all right, I'm sure it'll be good, but it's just so long and dragged out. And by the time it happens, you're just fatigued. And you're like, bro, just tell me who wins. Like,
Yeah, I think there's also just so many people watching it. It's like, it's just beyond, just more than football. And it's like,
I realized that this year.
Yeah.
When my wife and I had to go grocery shopping, and it was like an hour before the game, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll go with you. there ain't nobody gonna be at Mariano's right now. And literally, there was nobody at Mariano's because we went to a couple different places, and then we got to Mariano's like right at kickoff, and literally nobody there. And it was like, oh, this is kind of great. And I didn't find myself checking the score. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I'll see it when I get home. It'll probably be like still the first quarter. So that was interesting to me. It was a little revelation that I'm like, I care so much about the regular NFL season. By the time we get to the Super Bowl, I'm like, I don't really care that much.
Yeah, I really just wanted to see if Kendrick did Drake the kill shot to Drake.
He did, yeah.
He did. And he
Man,
did.
He had an entire stadium saying A minor.
Real dude.
It's wild.
I texted friends today. I said, I think Kendrick's next move is to go perform in every city that Drake is performing at and just haunt him like a ghost and follow him around, which is a recurring nightmare of mine, is to not be unable to escape the person that's hunting me. And I feel like Kendrick is Drake's recurring nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
All right. Well, a lot of good stuff to look out for. I guess, we'll just keep keeping tabs on the free agent rumors as they start to like sprinkle about it. So it'll get the stove will get pretty, I imagine.
And just thanks everybody for listening. And football season is over, but we're still going to keep doing this right here.
Yes, sir.
Move forward, and we'll get to the free agency period and all that stuff and anything you guys want to talk about.
Yeah, hit us up if you have topics. We're definitely open to dive into all your shit. If anyone that lives in Chicago, I'm going to be performing some improv shows this Friday the 14th and next Friday the 21st at 10 o'clock at the Logan Square Improv. And if you want to see me do some improv, hit me up. Come check it out. Friday, February 14th, Friday, Feb 21st, 10 p.m., Logan Square Improv in Chicago.
Good stuff, man.
Anything you want to shout out? Any new articles?
No, nothing new. Nothing new this week. I think as we start ramping up and moves start happening, you might see some stuff. But still, always check out On Tap Sports.
Hell
Never
yeah.
know what you'll find.
For Samir Patel, I'm Chirag Rathod. We are the Bears in the neighborhood, and we will catch y'all next week.
See you guys later.